I have a problem. I pay for the fastest internet my ISP provides to my building, and yet I cannot stay connected to my Wi-Fi for more than 12 feet away from it. If I'm in my bedroom, which is rather close to the Wi-Fi, I can't stay connected. I'm in the living room, which is in the same room as the router. I can't stay connected. I can't stay connected with my phone on top of the router. And this is a problem. But I've been able to fix it. And well, over the years, I've had to fix several Wi-Fi issues. So I figured, why not show you how to fix all of them? Today, I'm gonna fix your Wi-Fi problems after the intro. Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfie and you are watching GreaterThanPie. Now, before we start fixing things, it's important to know the why on why you're having problems. And unfortunately, it really comes down to your ISP. Your ISP is not in the business of providing you the absolute best hardware they possibly can, because they're in the business of selling you a solution to a problem that you're having. More importantly, most users will actually not experience these issues. 90% of their user base doesn't know enough about networking equipment in order to recognize that there is a problem. And well, that same user base probably isn't the kind of person to actually recognize that their Wi-Fi is being hindered in any possible way and just assumes that this is just how Wi-Fi is. Fortunately for you though, if you found this video, you are most likely a power user. Now, what is a power user? Well, your ISP uses a lot of broad terms, but if you fall under the umbrella of gamer, streamer, YouTuber, content creator of any kind, whether that be Instagram or other, or have more than 4 connected Wi-Fi devices, you would fall into this category. And unfortunately, your ISP provides the exact same hardware to its base package to its most expensive package, which you can imagine is a problem because one is a gigabit internet connection and the other one is probably only a couple megabits. But as a power user, you probably know that your ISP is not interested in preserving your wallet. And you've come to this video trying to find some type of a fix for their problem. In truth, what we call a router these days is actually a combination of a couple of different networking components. You have a modem, a router, an Ethernet switch, and an access point, all conglomerated into one device. And the reason they do this is, well, convenience. It's one box to plug in and take out. But it wasn't too long ago when these were all separated, and you could upgrade them separately in the past. In the professional sphere, like stores, offices, they still do it this way because sometimes infrastructure is not one size fits all. And sometimes you need more switch, more Ethernet, more access points. And unfortunately, that means that our ability to change things on a hardware level are somewhat limited using their router. Knowing all of this, we know that there's going to be some sort of limitations and that we are going to have to, well, play nice with their router. At least if we want to do things as cheap as possible. So let's go ahead and start with the cheapest, easiest solutions that your ISP won't necessarily kill you for doing. Before we start ripping out anything and changing infrastructure, let's start from the beginning at any troubleshooting chart. Turn it off and on again. Now, I know it seems dumb, but your router is just another computer. And because it is another computer, it can compile errors over time. And sometimes it just needs a fresh reboot. Fortunately, a lot of them have a nifty restart button located on the back of them. If it doesn't, all you have to do is unplug it for 10 seconds and then plug it back in. Once it comes back on, you should see a bunch of green lights instead of an amber or red one. When it's amber or red, it usually means that it's coming online. You will see a light that says that you are connected to the internet. Go ahead and actually test your router. See if you're getting the speeds you need, the connectivity you need. And sometimes even with the solutions we're gonna be talking about a little bit later, you do still need to do this. This is something that you should do periodically. In fact, a lot of professional settings power down their routers periodically when people aren't using them. But if that doesn't change anything, well, it's time to move on to step 2. Repositioning your router. Now, if your router is located in a Faraday cage in the back of your closet, it's not gonna be doing a whole lot for you. Your router should be located somewhere centrally. where it has nothing blocking it. The more objects you put in front of the router, the more the signal has to get through before it actually gets to your device. Because of that, you want to try to reduce anything that could possibly get in the way of your router. For me, I centrally located in an area that is pretty much the center of our apartment. I really don't have too much of a choice because the access point is also there, and yours probably is too. And if you have it elsewhere, you had to do something a little different. Now, I have seen it in the master in a couple of places, and if it is in that area, just try to pull it away from the wall and in an elevated position. You'd be surprised, but this is the easiest step you can do to more than likely increase your internet connectivity. And then the third thing you should try is repositioning your antennas. Your antennas aren't doing an awful lot if they're pointed into a wall. You should try to point them away from a wall depending on the type of antenna they are. Some of them you literally point the tip outward and it sends the signal in that direction. Others, like my Nighthawk, are a little bit more forgiving because they have a wide beam antenna. Point is, you want to aim your antennas in the general direction that you want the signal to go. This next method does dip a little bit into life hack territory, and it requires this: aluminum foil. Now, you're going to use this aluminum foil to make a foil. I know that's going to sound confusing, but what you're doing is you're essentially creating like a mini radar dish for your router. And you want to position this in a way that your antennas are bouncing their signal off of said little radar dish and directing them towards where you want to the Wi-Fi. Now, if you can't centrally locate your router, this is actually a great way to actually block it away from a wall that isn't supposed to be getting internet towards an area that is. And as crazy as it sounds, there are actually a lot of videos documenting that this can be very successful. I will link to a couple of them down below because while I have not personally had to use this solution in a long time, I do know that it does work. Now, this will work 100% of the time, but unfortunately is the one that people are the most hesitant to do. Now, as I've spoken to people who are power users like myself, this is something that they all have pretty much done. But when you talk to somebody who's a little bit older and a little bit more particular about how their house/apartment looks, this is something that they'll do a hard pass on. And that is to forego Wi-Fi and hardline all of your most important devices directly to the router. Now, this can be done in a couple ways. You're gonna need some Cat 5e or Cat 6. Cat 5e is super cheap and affordable, pretty easy to get your hands on in large sizes. And what you would want to do is you would actually want to run your Cat 5e to each room directly, making sure to go along the baseboards and along the trims of the doorways so that you can actually hide the cable ever so slightly. If your home is set up with Ethernet, you can actually just use the Ethernet in the wall. But a lot of homes aren't, unfortunately, and you could get it installed professionally if you would like. But again, this is something that if you are renting is not really an option. So in our apartment, we've actually opted to run the cabling along the floorboards and along the trim in a way that it doesn't inconvenience anybody. And we run each line directly to each room. And then we took this a step further by adding a network switch into each room so that there are up to 4 ports inside each room for devices. And interestingly enough, per room, there's about, on average, 2 to 3 devices connected directly through the Ethernet. So yes, we do use it, and it does work because the network switches will do their job in order to make sure that the signal gets switched properly to the other switch. The reason this works 100% of the time is, well, copper is reliable. And as long as there's not a cut in the cable, well, it will continue to work. And if you have issues, well, you can check the cable and you can check the router to make sure it's working properly. It does eliminate one extra factor, and because copper is reliable and not dependent on signals, you'll know that you're always connected at the best possible speed that you can be. That being said, this only really sidesteps the problem and doesn't really fix your Wi-Fi. So from this point, we're gonna get into the extreme solutions and the ones that will cost a lot of money, but will get the job done. So the next method, this is kind of nuclear option, and that is to replace it outright. Now, doing this is a bit of a problem. because ISPs have, in increasing numbers, made it harder and harder to replace their hardware. And the reason they do that is so that they can force you to rent their hardware. This means, unfortunately, that removing their underpowered piece of e-waste from the equation is a bit difficult. But don't give up yet. It's not actually impossible. In fact, in most cases, you can use something called bridge mode. The easiest way to check this is actually to Google, can my router use bridge mode? You want to replace my router with the model of your router, which you can find on the router itself. And if you find documentation, posts, videos, anything about it being able to go into bridge mode and people being successfully able to enter bridge mode, then you can start researching what kind of router you may want to attach to it. Personally, I have found that with $150 to $200, you pretty much max out all routers. Like, the absolute best home internet connections are within that price range. You can go even more extreme, but then you're going into professional solutions for bigger homes. And realistically, just read the spec sheet. And if it looks like that's exactly what you need, then there it is. More importantly, you will find features on these routers that your ISP router can only dream of having. Now, setting up a router in bridge mode is pretty simple. Follow the instructions on setting your host router into bridge mode, and then connect to your new router and use its built-in Genie or its instructions on how to do it manually to set it to bridge mode. Once in bridge mode, the host router pretty much deactivates except for connecting as a modem to the outside world. And the main router that you've just plugged in now will take over. Just make sure to transfer any device that's connected from one to the other and to change the Wi-Fi connection to the new router instead of the old one. That way you can actually reap the benefits of this. Now, in the odd case that you don't have to activate bridge mode, all you have to do is plug the new router in where the old router was. And it should be pretty good. You will probably need to connect a laptop in both situations to the router to actually adjust some settings. You'd be able to do this by connecting your laptop into any available Ethernet ports. And if you don't have an Ethernet port on your laptop, you can just use one of these cheap little dongles to do so. And if you don't have a laptop, you could use a desktop to do it. The only thing that really wouldn't work is a phone, because you need to be able to access network settings, and it's a bit trickier to do that with wireless. But after everything's plugged in and all the lights turn on, you should be good to go. And as long as you pick the right one for your needs, you won't have any problems anymore. Granted, sometimes your ISP just really doesn't like you and they want to keep you from using bridge mode. Mine is one of those ISPs. They actually outright prevent you from accessing that setting. And even more so when we asked, in no uncertain terms, they said this would void our contract with them. Now, I don't know if they were lying or if it really is a situation where they want that much control. So we had to come up with a different way that didn't change any of the settings inside the router itself. And fortunately, there is one. And it works pretty damn well. And it's the solution we ended up using. Yes, in some cases, your ISP will fight you tooth and nail. And the best way to win is to not play their game at all. You see, you have one ace up your sleeve that they really can't prevent. And that is to add a second access point. Now, you can do this with a router or with an actual access point that you can buy on Amazon or Newegg, and they're usually around $60 to $100. They're not too bad. Though, if you do go the access point method, you are going to want to either get one that has power that is supplied to it, or if it has something called PoE, making sure to get a PoE injector to make sure that you can actually power it. PoE stands for Power over Ethernet, and this device literally has a singular port that provides power and data. And so a PoE injector allows you to have the internet stream go up and a power stream go up with it. You just have to plug it in manually. And unfortunately, your home networking situation, if you're using the ISP thing, does not actually have power over Ethernet. So yeah, just consider that into the price. Granted, it will be cheaper than using a router to do this. Now, once you find one that looks great to you, all you need to do is follow the instructions on installing it. Usually it wants to be mounted up high, or centrally, much like I've said earlier, and you just connect it to the back of your router using an Ethernet, and it should just work. It might have some setups that you have to plug in to a USB port or even directly connect your laptop to it to set up, but usually the instructions on setting these things up is very straightforward. Now, if you do want to go the router route, things are a little trickier, but still not too complicated. And this is the solution that we personally use for our Wi-Fi in our apartment. So all you have to do is you connect both routers together. And when you're setting up your second router, in this case, our Netgear Nighthawk, we just need to tell it that it's going to be in access point mode. And all we need to do is actually go to the advanced settings and select access point mode, since we know that's what we're doing. You could follow the genie if you would like, if you don't trust yourself. And I would recommend looking into the specifics of your model before attempting this. Now, much like before, my suggestions still stand. Adjusting the antenna, centrally locating the device, placing it how it wants to be placed. And if you're still having issues, that aluminum foil technique also might help here. There's a lot you can do. But if you combine our extreme Ethernet method with this method, you can create something truly spectacular. Nothing, I mean nothing, is stopping you from making per room Wi-Fi a thing. And in our situation, where we use a network switch in just about every area of the house, you can replace that network switch with a router, and you have the network switch plus the router and Wi-Fi. Now, you do need to make sure that you connect any device that needs to get the benefit of this improved Wi-Fi to the correct device. And in this setup, you would actually have to make sure that the people in each room are connecting to the correct device in the room. But nothing is stopping you from taking it to this extreme. And that's kind of awesome. Even with all of the restrictions that our ISP put on us, we could do something as crazy as that. The best part is, because this is part of the network, connecting to this device doesn't change anything about the network itself, other than its access and passwords for said access. I could still just as easily use Steam Play from the PC to a device connected, even if they're connected to two different parts of the network. But that is where I'm going to end today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can leave it a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. I would love to actually answer them and help you guys out. And I really hope this helped you out a little bit. I will see you in the next video. Wolfie, out.